Wrestling fans, are you ready? For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, let's get ready to rumble!
And now, please welcome at this time your hosts, Graham GSM Matthews and RJ Marceau. You're listening to the next era of wrestling radio. This is WrestleRant Radio.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WrestleRant Radio for Thursday, August 29, 2024. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week so far. Excited to announce that Mr. Marceau is indeed back this week from illness. He missed last week's show. He's back this week here to discuss all things Bash in Berlin, NXT No Mercy, and Raw for Monday night, which I was able to attend actually in Providence and had a great time. Before we get to any of that, though, I do want to give my review of AEW All In, a solo review. Mr. Marceau did not catch the show, so I thought I would start the show by giving my thoughts, my full review of the pay-per-view from last weekend from Wembley, which was a great show. And honestly, by the end of it, I might come closer to the conclusion that AEW All In was AEW's best pay-per-view so far of 2024. We'll talk about it. But before we go any further, I do want to mention this before I forget. This is not AEW related, but the passing of Sid Justice, Sycho Sid, call him what you will, passing away on Monday at 63 from cancer, I believe. Definitely abrupt, definitely came out of nowhere. I'm not sure if it was known that he had cancer, because I was kind of surprised when I heard that. But certainly sad, though. I am actually shocked, and I've said this before, that he is not in the WWE Hall of Fame. He should be. Former WWE champion, had success everywhere that he went. I don't really have any fond memories of watching his career. He was before my time. But I will say this, it might have been in Hartford, the show that I almost went to back in 2012. But he returned to WWE following a 15-year absence. He had not appeared for WWE since 1997. But he came back in 2012 randomly as part of the Raw 1000 celebration. He was on Raw 1000, but he was on Raw before that to face Heath Slater. And that was one of his last matches ever, actually. I don't think it was his last match. It says on his ProFight DB, his database profile, whatever, that it was his last match on record. But I'm pretty sure he had another match after that at like an indie show a couple of years later. But that's what I'll always think of with Sycho Sid. Among the other highlights that he had in his career in WWE, WWF, whatever, WCW, he certainly will be missed. New episodes of WrestleRant Radio every single Thursday on WrestleRant.com, WrestleRantRadio.com, all your favorite podcast platforms. Rate the show, review the show, subscribe to the show. Never miss new episodes every single Thursday. So let's get into my full review of the show here. This won't take an hour. I'm hoping to only have this take 20 minutes. We'll go through each of the matches here. Some matches I'll have more thoughts on than others. But on the pre-show, it was a pretty standard pre-show up until the end there when we had a great return. Not really sure why that was given away in the pre-show, but we'll get to that in a moment. The first match on the show was a 16-man tag team match. Yes, they did a 16-man tag team match, which is complete fucking overkill, but that's just what AEW does. Tommy Billington, Kip Sabian, Rocky Romero, Kyle Fletcher, Lio Rush, Action Andretti, and Top Flight, defeating the team of Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, Arya Daivari, Private Party, and the Dark Order's John Silver and Alex Reynolds. That was the matchup. It was a matchup that existed. Didn't take up too much time. It was an 11-minute long matchup, but again, it was on the pre-show. Who cares? Was what it was. Willow Nightingale and Tomohiro Ishii beating the team of Chris Statlander and Stokely Hathaway. By virtue of their victory, Willow Nightingale can now pick the stipulation for her rematch with Chris Statlander at All Out, where the CMLL Women's World Championship will be on the line. And I think she announced on Dynamite last night it's going to be a street fight, a Chicago street fight. So pretty basic stipulation, but it should be a great match. All their other matches so far have been very entertaining, so I'm looking forward to that. And I thought Chris Statlander and Hathaway might win, but it made more sense for Ishii to just destroy Hathaway and pin him. So I'm glad that's what they did. The other pre-show matchup was the Von Erich, Sammy Guevara, Katsuyori Shibata, and Dustin Rhodes, knocking off the Undisputed Kingdom's Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, as well as the Cage of Agonies, Gates of Agony, and Brian Cage. Again, pretty standard tag team match here. Nothing really out of the ordinary about it. You had Kevin Von Erich locking in the claw on one of the heels afterward, which made for a nice moment, but beyond that, this match also really not serving much of a purpose beyond getting as many people on the card as possible. The only thing really worth a damn on the pre-show was the Saraya segment, and not really for Saraya herself, but she did at last year's show win the AEW Women's World Championship. So after failing to take the Women's Championship from Toni Storm on last Wednesday's Dynamite, she came out here looking to get another Wembley moment, looking to get on the show in any capacity possible, only to be interrupted and confronted and attacked by the returning Jamie Hayter, we have not seen since Double or Nothing last year. The former AEW Women's World Champion, Jamie Hayter, has been out for a very long time. And I think the initial idea was that she was suffering from a shoulder injury, probably had surgery of some sort. That was 15 months ago. Honestly, kind of reminds me of Hideo Itami, who I think had a setback. We don't even really know what happened to Jamie Hayter. We know that she was hurt, that she was banged up, had to take time off. I honestly thought she might be back by All In last year. At the very latest, at the end of 2023, maybe early 2024, maybe Double or Nothing. It took her well over a year to return. I'm glad she's finally back. She's a great addition to a growing women's division in AEW. They have Mercedes Moné now. Britt Baker's back. There's a lot of stuff going on right now in the AEW women's division. Chris Statlander, Willow Nightingale getting more opportunities. They're having a really fun feud right now. The Mariah May, Toni Storm stuff. So Jamie Hayter could not be back at a better time. I just don't know why she was gone for so long. Maybe she had other setbacks, other issues going on. She wasn't updating anyone on her status. She kind of fell off the face of the earth. She didn't update her social media. She wasn't doing interviews, obviously, so we don't really know what her status was. Maybe we'll find out in due time why it took so long for her to come back. But better late than never, and no better place to return at than All In front of her home country in England. So that made for a great moment. She did knock off Harley Cameron on Wednesday's Dynamite, so it looks like she's headed for a match with Saraya probably either on Dynamite in the next couple of weeks or at All Out in 2 weeks, which I'll get to later on because they announced a whole slew of matches for that show. They kicked off the main card with the London ladder match. Now this was a fucking mess, but like in the best way possible. We've seen so many ladder matches in WWE and AEW in the past number of years, NXT included, where almost none of them really stand out at this point, including the ones that have just so many people in them. I will say, I think this had as many people as the tag team ladder match that we got at WrestleMania this year for the 2 sets of tag team titles. This was definitely better than that. It was fun. Probably won't remember it a week or two from now, but it was fun for what it was. Pac and the BCC's Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta beating the Patriarchy, Christian Cage, Killswitch, and Nick Wayne, the Bang Bang Gangs, Juice Robinson, the Guns, and the House of Blacks, Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews in this 4-team, 4-trios ladder match to become the new AEW World Trios Champions. This match, or rather Pac and the BCC's involvement, wasn't even announced until like Saturday's Collision, the day before the show. The outcome was pretty set in stone. Not set in stone, actually. I thought the Patriarchy was actually going to win. I mentioned that last week here on the show. The outcome of their qualifier on Saturday was kind of set in stone. I figured Pac and the BCC would get on the show. I was asking people on Twitter, that is just so fucking random. Like, what is the point of that? I know they wanted to get Pac on the show, give him his Wembley moment. If he couldn't win the International Championship on the show, the American title, whatever, he's getting that shot now at All Out against Will Ospreay, which I'm very much looking forward to. But if he couldn't contend for that championship at All In or win a championship at All In, they wanted to get him on the show in some form or fashion. This is what they came up with. Now it makes more sense why the Lucha Bros weren't in the match. The idea, and it still could be true, was that they did not want to lose, didn't want to do the favors for anyone on the way out, which could be true. But it's looking more and more likely that they are WWE bound, because if they weren't, then why wouldn't they have just, have appeared in this match? But it's because they went over. They were going to go over, probably. I guess they didn't want to have Pac get involved. I'm not really sure why he's the Trios Champions with 2 random partners, especially if he's challenging for the International Championship in a couple of weeks. I know they wanted to give him his moment, but that just seems kind of odd to me. But I guess they wanted to give him his moment, which is why the Lucha Bros were not involved, because if they're on their way out, why would they win the Trios Championships? So, I don't know. But the match itself was kind of a car crash, again, in a fun way. We just see so many ladder matches. I'm numb to a lot of this stuff at this point, although I love ladder matches. This was fun for what it was. Mariah May knocking off Timeless Toni Storm to become the new AEW Women's World Champion. A great matchup here. Great matchup. Probably one of the best women's matches this company's ever had. If only for the story they told and they've had a great story going since late last year. Mariah May plays her role exceptionally well. Toni Storm's really coming to her own as the timeless one, and they worked really well together, and Mariah May ended up going over new women's champion. So I'm excited for the Mariah May era of the women's division with her as the AEW Women's World Champion. Excited to see where Toni Storm goes from here. I can't imagine she does the timeless stuff for like a while longer. In AEW, they drag stuff on for like fucking ever when it just gets to a point where you don't really want to see it anymore. And WWE has done that on occasion as well. I mean, they drag out stories too, but this isn't a story. I'm talking like the character itself, she might do until people are completely sick of it, which doesn't really interest me. But, we'll see how further she takes the character now that she's no longer the women's champion. She might have to get more serious now and really kind of up the ante and up the intensity. We've seen intense Toni Storm in recent weeks since Mariah May turned on her back in early July, but she might have to kind of ditch some of the character stuff and be more serious now that she's no longer champion and lost what was most important to her. Because that was why she kind of went crazy in the first place, was because she lost the championship back at All In last year. So maybe that will trigger a similar change for her. She was actually kind of going crazy before that. She didn't lose the championship at All In. She lost it a couple of weeks before that. I think the Sheeta on the 200th Dynamite, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, we'll see where Toni Storm goes from here. We had a last chance match, an FTW rules match for the FTW Championship. Hook and Chris Jericho. Less said about this, the better. I just do not give a fuck about this feud. I don't give a fuck about the FTW Championship. I don't give a fuck about the Learning Tree Chris Jericho bullshit. And the only good thing I would have said about this before Wednesday was that it felt like the end of the Learning Tree bullshit now that he's no longer the champion. Maybe he'll take time off. Taz giving Jericho his comeuppance. I mean, he locked Big Bill, I think, in the Taz mission, not Jericho himself. But they had a nice father-son moment at Hook and Taz at ringside after the match was over. That was cool. You would think that would be the culmination of Chris Jericho on AEW television for now. It was not. He was right back on television on Wednesday in an 8-man tag team match, losing to Hook and the Conglomeration. The match was fine. I did give Tony Khan the benefit of the doubt, because he said in a follow-up tweet after announcing said 8-man tag team match for Dynamite on Tuesday on X, he said, "You just got to trust me. Sometimes you just got to trust me." Well, I trusted him. It didn't really pay off because we still got the match and Jericho lost and whatever, but I thought the match might happen because we could see Big Bill just completely fucking destroy Jericho afterward. That was my hope going into that match. And that did not happen. It was just a regular match that got plenty of time, a match I didn't really give a fuck about because, again, it's setting up Roderick Strong and Hook for the FTW Championship. Again, who cares about the FTW Championship? But, again, it's not as if it's set up Big Bill attacking Jericho. That could still be the end game. But it's not like that crowd on Wednesday reacted to Jericho getting attacked by Big Bill. Big Bill got a great reaction overseas, and maybe they can get back to him being that over here in the States if they build it up enough. But we're already seeing tension being teased between Christian and Luchasaurus. It's kind of a very similar dynamic. So if they were to have Big Bill and Jericho tease tension in that way, and there was no sense of dissension, no tease of dissension between the two, during the match, before the match, after the match, I feel like it would just be telling that same story. So that's kind of the problem that I have with it. I would just rather him destroy Jericho and be done with it, but they might drag this on for fucking ever. I'm sorry, Tony Khan. In this instance, I do not trust you. We had the Bucks defending the AEW World Tag Team Championships against the teams of FTR and the Acclaimed. A good match. I didn't really care about this match. They didn't get 20 minutes, nor should they have. It was a good match, but I'm just sick of these teams working together. I'm sick of the Acclaimed's tired scissor shtick. It's cold. It's stupid. Move on. I like FTR, but I don't really want to see them in the Bucks again anytime soon. The Bucks retained. Logical outcome. I thought FTR, there was a chance they could win the belts back. I was kind of hoping for it. Did not happen. Figured the Bucks would have retained, though. That did happen. The best part about all of this, honestly, was the debut of the grizzled young vets afterward. Now, I know they had a match on Collision not that long ago with the Acclaim, so it's not technically their AEW debut, but their formal debut probably as signed talent, showing up and attacking FTR. Now, they did put the Bucks and the entire tag team division on notice in a pre-tape promo on Wednesday's Dynamite, but they are a great addition to the division, and I'm looking forward to a feud between them and FTR. Then they could fucking destroy the shit out of each other and have some hard-hitting, enjoyable matches, so I like that moment. The rest of this, didn't really care about. The Casino Gauntlet, the third one that we've gotten since April, was really, really good, actually. The other two were great. This might have been on par, if not better than those two. It's just a great gimmick. It's basically like an Eliminator Gauntlet match, but you're not pinning anyone, and only one pinfall can win the entire match. I guess the idea is that people just keep coming out. So, I mean, people are announced for the match, but they may not even come out. Like, Evil Uno was one of the announced participants. He never came out. Thank fucking God. I mean, with the amount of people, with the level of stars they had in this match, Evil Uno would have stuck out like a sore thumb. So that worked out well. But I guess the idea is the match will keep going on and on until someone wins the match. So technically, theoretically, it could just go on forever. And I don't know where they would pull these people out of. I guess Christian Cage did end up pulling double duty. The fact that he would come out before someone that did not have a match in Evil Uno, I mean, I'm not complaining. Who gives a fuck about Evil Uno being involved? I'm just saying, from a storyline standpoint, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But it did end up being a fun match. Christian Cage actually did win the whole thing, pinning, I think, Kyle O'Reilly. Luchasaurus came out as a surprise entrant as well, and I'll get to the other surprise entrants in a moment. But Luchasaurus came out, and he teased turning on Christian only to help him win, which didn't really make a whole lot of sense because, like, from a storyline standpoint, why do they have to tease Luchasaurus turning on Christian? Like, did that sense, or did that cause Kyle O'Reilly to fall into a false sense of security? Like, that just didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. To tease it and then not to deliver it. They've been teasing tension for a very long time, and I just, at this point, do not care. I just don't care. The fans were into it, and they still probably will pop for when Luchasaurus turns on Christian. But at this current point, I do not care. Christian did win, and I was fine with that. The execution of the finish I thought was lame. I was honestly kind of hoping Nigel McGuinness would win. Nigel McGuinness was one of these surprise entrants in the matchup. Zack Sabre Jr. was out there, among other people. Okada did end up getting involved. Wasn't sure if he'd be on the card. It would have been a fucking travesty if he wasn't. For Okada to be under contract and then not have him on the show in any capacity. He was involved in this matchup. Okada was a cool surprise, as was Zack Sabre Jr. But Nigel McGuinness coming out was fucking awesome. We have not seen him in the ring since 2011, and I have been beating this drum for a while. I was disappointed when him and Bryan Danielson was not announced for this year's show or even last year's show. And maybe they were going to have a match last year, and then Danielson got hurt. I'm kind of skeptical. It kind of looked like we were going to get Omega and Danielson instead. That was the talk at one point, I think, before All In last year, and that just didn't happen because Danielson couldn't make the show, and Omega wasn't on the show this year. I thought we might get Danielson and Nigel. We did not. They put Danielson, obviously, in the main event instead. Nigel ended up returning in this match, and it was fucking cool. And the guy can still clearly go. So if they want to put him back in the ring for like a brief return run, hey, no complaints here. Bryan and Nigel at like All Out would be fucking awesome. We are not getting that. We are getting Bryan and Jack Perry. Spoiler for the main event on this show, but Bryan Danielson did end up becoming AEW World Champion. That would be cool to get Nigel and Bryan Danielson one more time. Probably not going to happen. But, a man can dream. And if that was it for Nigel and he never wrestles again, that was a great way to go out in his home country, getting a great reaction. That was really special. Will Ospreay and MJF having a match for the AEW International Championship, American title, whatever you want to call it. Another excellent outing from these two. Could have done without some of the shenanigans from Ospreay and MJF a little bit down the stretch, but overall a great matchup. Ospreay getting his win back, as well as the International Championship. Daniel Garcia did return towards the end of the matchup to cost MJF the win, setting up a match between those two for All Out, which was made official on Wednesday's Dynamite. Doesn't necessarily mean that Garcia resigned, though. Apparently the talk is that even though he returned on this show, that he still is yet to resign to the company. And I think his contract comes due either next month or soon after, so they're going to have to come to a decision soon because he's facing MJF at All Out. You're not going to have the guy win and then he leaves. I mean, I guess he could, but that would be kind of dumb. So we'll see. I think Garcia stays put, so we'll find out, but hopefully they can kind of use that feud as a launching point for Daniel Garcia as a single star. He's got other opportunities before. They never really capitalized on his momentum in the past. Hopefully they can now. Mercedes Moné beating Britt Baker to retain the AEW TBS Championship. Probably the most underwhelming match on the show. I thought they had a good match. It could have been better. It got a lot of time. It was almost 18 minutes. There were some rough points there in the middle where it just didn't really feel like they were on the same page. They didn't really click as well as opponents as I thought they might. The finish also kind of came out of nowhere, so that was odd. But the overall match, that was fine. Mercedes Moné still the TBS champion, which was the right outcome all along. Mercedes, she was on Dynamite, didn't interact with Britt at all. I assume the feud continues, but Maybe they have a rematch at All Out. Maybe they save the rematch for WrestleDream. I'm not sure, but the finish was kind of abrupt and kind of underwhelming. So we'll see if their rematch hopefully will be better. The coffin match for the AEW TNT Championship, Jack Perry and Darby Allin. Having a good match. I'm not really a casket match guy, and I didn't really care about the match. I thought it was a good brawl. Didn't get a whole lot of time. I guess it was shortchanged on time because they didn't want to go overtime for this show. They had to end the show at, I think, 11 p.m., British time, Columbia time, whatever the fuck it is. Not British Columbia time, but whatever the time zone is over in England. I guess they had to end it by a certain curfew, obviously. It ended at like exactly 4 or 5 p.m. here in the States on the East Coast, so it ended exactly on time. But I thought it was a good match. Jack Perry, still the AEW TNT champion, made sense. We did get a Sting appearance afterward, which was cool, coming to the aid of Darby Allin. No, he's not coming out of retirement, but he did make an appearance here in Wembley, as he did last year, helping Darby Allin win a match, the tag team coffin match against Swerve and Christian Cage. So this was good. And then we get to the main event, Bryan Danielson defeating Swerve Strickland to become the new AEW World Champion. And this was a title versus career match, and Bryan had said if he lost here that he would never again wrestle, which we know wasn't going to happen. He has even said that he intends to wrestle again down the road. His full-time career is over, but, not his career, period. And he even said that on Dynamite when he said, I'm not going to retire as champion. I'm going to wrestle my last full-time match when I lose this belt, but until then, I'm still an active performer. So I think he still loses it at WrestleDream in Seattle, probably back to Swerve if I had to take a guess. Could be wrong. I would kind of prefer for someone else to get a shot first and win that belt in the meantime. But Swerve getting the belt back, I would not be against that whatsoever. And Swerve is going to be facing Hangman at All Out. They made that official on Wednesday. Hangman Page attempting to cost Swerve the win on this show and coming up short. He was unsuccessful. But yeah, Danielson is the new champion. And the stipulation, it made for a great match with the drama and the atmosphere. Danielson coming out the final countdown was fucking cool. I just didn't think that he would never wrestle again. That was kind of a stretch. But they made you think that could happen with the amount of near falls and the suspense and whatnot. It was an excellent matchup. And definitely one of AEW's best matches all year. I feel like AEW this year specifically, say what you will about the active buzz around the product and whatnot from week to week, but they might have more match of the year contenders this year than any other year so far that they've had. I mean, I can name at least 4 matches alone this year that are like the fucking Mount Rushmore of matches, like matches of the year for AEW in 2024. I would say this match. I would say Ospreay and MJF. The match on this show is amazing too. I did like the Dynamite match a little bit more for the AEW American Championship or International title, whatever. I would say that match, this match, Danielson and Ospreay from Dynasty, and Ospreay and Swerve from Forbidden Door. Both of those matches were excellent. So I would say that's like the Mount Rushmore matches in 2024 for best AEW matches. And a lot of these pay-per-views have been good. I felt like this was the best of the bunch so far this year. I thought Dynasty was a great show. Forbidden Door was good. Even Double or Nothing was very good. But I feel like this one had a different vibe to it. And not just because of the building, which definitely made a difference. This did feel like the WrestleMania with certain stories being paid off. A lot of championships changing hands. The build for the pay-per-view was a lot better than last year. Stuff felt like it mattered. Didn't really feel like a glorified house show. Stuff didn't feel random. I really, really liked this show, and I was left very satisfied once it was over. So they have another pay-per-view coming up in 2 weeks. Like I said earlier, they already set up a number of matches for that show at All Out in Chicago. We'll do predictions for that show, or I will, or whoever. Either me and Mr. Marceau, or I'll be flying solo for that on the show here next week. So just wanted to start the show giving my thoughts on All In. I just thought it was a really, really good show, and we'll see if they can kind of maintain this momentum going into All Out next weekend. But before then, we have 2, not 1, but 2 WWE PLEs, if you will. NXT No Mercy on Sunday and Bash in Berlin on Saturday this coming weekend. We'll have predictions for those in a moment. We do want to give our thoughts on Raw for Monday, of which I was in attendance for in Providence. Had a fun time. We missed you there, Mr. Marceau. You're back on the show this week. You missed the show last week due to sickness. Hope you're feeling better, brother. What's going on?
Doing good. Feeling a lot better.
That's good. Like I said, we missed you on Raw, or at Raw rather, in Providence on Monday night. The Dunkin' Donuts Center. I was talking to someone the other day and called it the Amica Pavilion. I got to get back in the habit of calling it the Dunkin' Donuts Center, because that's what it will forever be to me. I know you as well.
It's always been the Dunkin' Donuts Center. It always will be. Not the dumb Amica Mutual Pavilion or whatever the crap is.
You wouldn't have seen it because you would have gone out a different way. But you would have died, though. And I didn't text this. I forgot to tell you this. We were leaving. It was me. It was Alexis. It was my younger sister. And Dylan went with us when we found out that you couldn't go. When you and Molly couldn't go. So they ended up taking your tickets. And it was a last-minute thing. Actually, the GOAT texted me like last minute and Monday afternoon. Because I was actually kind of reserved to the fact that we weren't going. Which would have been fine because I'm thinking, well, you're not going anyway. So it's really not that big of a deal. Then he texted me like late in the afternoon. Like, hey, fuck yeah, let's go. So it was like a last-minute thing. So we were leaving the arena after the show was over, and there was like this massive mob of people, because we went through the mall entrance, because we parked at the Providence Place parking lot. So we were going through the mall to get back to our car, and these two just massive guys just broke out in a fight, literally right next to us. Because I think one of them called the other one a slur or something, and they were just like, when I say beating the shit out of each other, it wasn't like a fight. You know what they do? Like, they push each other. You've been to a million concerts or sports games. It happens everywhere. But it was just crazy, though. And these two, like, just overweight losers just, like, going at each other, swearing at each other in front of the kids. And people are like, what the fuck's going on here? It was, it was a fight that you may have seen on Raw, but it would have been pretty underwhelming, though. But it was actually a pretty big deal. The security had to run by and break it up. And I was like, Mr. Marceau would have been loving this if he was here to see it.
Sounds like you should have got in there.
Listen, they were right next to me. They were right next to my 11-year-old sister. So, I mean, Alexis kind of took her out of the way so she wasn't in harm's way. Because, you know, again, they're pushing each other and these guys were massive. So I'm thinking I'll just stand in the way in case they come over this way and she somehow is affected. So I almost, broke out my special guest referee shirt. I was like, I have experience with this sort of thing, so maybe I can jump in there and help. But it was bad, though. So, yeah, that was after Raw went off the air on Monday night. It was, like, after the show, and I'm thinking, I should have taken a picture or a video, but my storage on my phone is terrible, so I couldn't. But it was pretty funny, though. The show itself, you didn't really miss much. We'll talk about Bash in Berlin in a moment, as far as the predictions for the pay-per-view. So a lot of what happened on Raw was kind of, hype for the show. But they did kick off the Intercontinental Championship #1 Contenders Tournament with Braun Breaker, the Intercontinental Champion, obviously. He's going to be facing the winner of this tournament come Bad Blood, I believe. I don't know if they officially announced that, but I know that was the talk as of a week ago. So it's a tournament, but not really. It's a different kind of tournament. They're just doing 4 qualifying matches, all of which are triple threats. They had 2 on Monday night, one of which saw Jey Uso, who was far and away, which I know you would approve of, the most over guy in the entire show, to no one's surprise, beating Karrion Kross and Kofi Kingston in one triple threat. The other one saw Pete Dunne beating The Miz and Xavier Woods to qualify to the fatal 4-way match, and not this coming Monday, but in 2 weeks' time on the Monday, not after Bash in Berlin, but the following week. So I think the 4-way is probably going to be that week, and then they'll build towards Braun Breaker versus the winner of the tournament at Bad Blood, like I mentioned. So your thoughts on the 2 triple threats? And who you could see coming out of this thing. And like I said, so far it's Jey Uso and Pete Dunne. I think one of the other triple threats next week is Sheamus. I don't remember. I know Bronson Reed is in one of them. One of them is Ilya Dragunov, Dominic, and Dragon Lee. So the other one must be Sheamus, Bronson Reed, and I don't remember the other individual. But I figure Sheamus is winning anyway. So your thoughts on the triple threats that we've gotten so far and who you could see winning ultimately from this #1 Contenders Tournament?
Yeah, I thought for the 2 we saw on Monday, I thought they both were pretty well done. The Jey, Karrion, and Kofi one was like kind of eh. I mean, it was more about Kofi and Karrion, and then Jey got the win there. And then I thought the other match was pretty good with Dunne, Woods, and The Miz. But, yeah, if you have Miz or Dunne, Jey, you think Sheamus, and what was the other one?
I think the other one was Dominic, Dragon Lee, and Ilya Dragunov. So I would assume probably I think Dominic's going to win, but I guess you can go with Dragunov as well. So I don't know. Whoever you think might win there.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it just really depends on who wins. I kind of hope Jey doesn't win. I don't want him just to lose the Braun.
Yeah.
But, I mean, at this point, he's kind of just spinning his wheels. They don't really know what to do with him. And he's put him in this tournament. So, I don't know. I think, a babyface would win, and maybe him or Sheamus, but I don't know. I feel like Sheamus isn't going to beat him. and neither will Jey. So I don't know. I think it's like a decent idea, but I think it's just Braun wins. LOL. I mean, he's just won the belt. I wouldn't take it off him anytime soon.
Ludwig Kaiser, actually. That's who the other person was in the other triple threat. He's not winning, but he is in that match with Sheamus and Bronson. But yeah, Bronson Reed, or rather, a lot of Brons. Braun Breaker just won the Intercontinental Championship. I don't see him losing it at Bad Blood. Are you in the Rikishi camp? Did you see his comments from the other day? And he has said a lot of stuff lately that's been... I feel like, I don't know if he actually feels this way. I feel like at this point he just says shit to get people going and for people to watch his podcast, and I'm not sure that they would listen to otherwise. But he said the other day prior to Raw, it might have been on Sunday or Monday, that Jey Uso, they don't know what to do with him, which is true. I mean, you mentioned that yourself a moment ago. And because at one point he was teaming with Sami Zayn, who we haven't seen since he lost to Braun Breaker coming out of SummerSlam. They had a rematch and he lost that too. They were teasing him joining the tournament. Or Sami Zayn wasn't in the tournament. He's not in this tournament. But they were teasing them going after the World Tag Team titles, which I don't think have been defended since the Judgment Day won them like almost 3 months ago, which is just fucking ridiculous. I mean, at that point, what's even the point of them being tag team champions? But, they were teasing that, and then all of a sudden, Jey Uso's like, I want the Intercontinental title, which is nice because he's over enough to be in the tournament and face Braun Breaker. The only problem is if he faces Braun, which I feel like he will, and that will be the Bad Blood match, he's not fucking winning. So, do you find this Rikishi stuff as comical as everyone else does, or is there a part of you that agrees with it and is like, because he was also saying like, oh, you should walk away and go to AEW, and it's like, what are you even fucking talking about,
I mean, I feel like I do understand, like, they clearly don't know what to do with him at this point. Like you said, like, it's seemingly he was going to tag with Sami. Now we haven't seen Sami since. Now he's going for the Intercontinental title. And like you said, I mean, I think he could win the tournament and then lose to Braun. And then, what's that, like his 10th singles title he's challenged for and lost? I mean, unless they're literally culminating this at the very end of him finally winning, like, the big one, like, he could just, like, I don't know what the whole point of this is. I mean, besides, like, spending more time and just kind of keeping him busy. But, I mean, he's not wrong on the whole, like, they don't know what they're doing with him, because I feel like he's kind of all over the place. But, I mean, at least he's on the show. I guess that's a positive. But, like you said, he needs some more concrete stuff. Him just kind of bouncing around doesn't really do much for me.
Yeah, I know we talked about it previously as far as them probably at some point, and at least Jey, maybe Sami Zayn, getting involved in the Bloodline stuff again. I could potentially see that, but again, Sami Zayn hasn't been around. They're keeping Jey busy with this stuff in the meantime. I don't really know why the current Bloodline, would go after Jey Uso, unless Jey Uso went after them first, but I don't know. They have to kind of work towards that. That might be closer to War Games / Survivor Series. It might be closer to WrestleMania. Because people have said the ultimate team that might dethrone the Bloodline as WWE Tag Team Champions on SmackDown could be the Usos, and Jimmy Uso is still not yet back on SmackDown. Roman Reigns has officially returned. We still haven't seen Paul Heyman since June, but we haven't seen Jimmy Uso since April, since the SmackDown after WrestleMania. So they can go in a couple different directions there, but I'm not really sure what they're doing with Jey in the meantime. Again, Braun Breaker and Jey's a fun match, but if he's not going to win, in a vacuum, it's fine. But when you have the guy out there all the time in these World Heavyweight title matches and Tag Team title matches and in Intercontinental title matches, never fucking winning anything of note, in addition to King of the Ring matches and Money in the Bank qualifiers and stuff like that, and he can't win anything, that's kind of part of the problem. So I do think he will ultimately go over in this tournament, but I'm not really sure. Like, Braun Breaker gains something from beating him, but Jey Uso gains nothing from continuing to spin his wheels. So they got to improve upon that in the coming weeks for sure. One other thing from Raw, we mentioned Bronson Reed is in one of the qualifiers. Him and Braun Strowman went one-on-one for the first time ever on Monday night in a decent match. They had a good, like, big monster battle, Clash of the Titans type thing. But it was all about the finish, and I thought there was a chance they might do the ring collapse spot. We've already seen it enough times. I mean, the only reason I would have wanted to see it was because we were there, so I would have wanted to see it in person. But they did not do that. They brawled to the back, they went outside, and Bronson Reed delivering a tsunami splash on top of Braun Strowman, on top of a car, which blew the windows out and caused like an electric outage in the top of the car or whatever. So that was an awesome visual. Bronson Reed standing tall as Braun Strowman had to be helped out. So I know we've talked about it a few times already in the last month, but I do think they're doing a really, really good job of building up Bronson Reed, getting him over, and really putting him over as an absolute force on this show with what they've been doing with him as of late.
Yeah, no, I think this was another good step in the right direction. I mean, like you said, good big man match or decent big man match, and then like you said, the finish was, I mean, the way they finished this whole thing off, I thought made Reed look like a beast. Like you said, the tsunami off the little ledge there on top of the car looked great. Braun had to be taken off, him just walking away. Like, they've done a great job with him. Like I said, I think to me, they need, like, he needs to beat Rollins when Rollins comes back to, like, actually matter to me. But for what they're doing now, I mean, he's coming off as a beast.
And not only beat Rollins, but, like, he might win the first match. I know Rollins will eventually beat him, because obviously the end game here at some point will be Rollins and Punk. Likely going into WrestleMania at this point, especially with Rollins currently being out. They're really dragging out the Punk and McIntyre stuff, which is fine, because it feels like it should culminate at Bad Blood at this point, probably in a Hell in a Cell match. But, you know, they got to do a good job of building him up in the meantime and making sure Bronson Reed emerges from this feud still feeling like a dominant force on the show, and he's not just fed to Rollins and then goes right back to doing what he was doing previously, which was nothing. So they got to be careful with that. So far, so good, but that is part of my concern as well. I lied. There's actually one more thing from Raw I did want to bring up that I forgot about. The main event, Uncle Howdy and Chad Gable, which was a good match. These guys have been feuding since Uncle Howdy and the Wyatt Six debuted back in June. But I will say, I mean, for a match that wasn't like an absolute barn burner, the crowd was into it. They were into the Uncle Howdy stuff. He was super over. They did not go the supernatural route. They did have the lights go out and have the Wyatt Six come out to counter the interference from American Made from Chad Gable's faction. But beyond that, it wasn't as if like Uncle Howdy didn't sell for anything or whatever. The hair of the wig and the mask kind of looks a little goofy, but beyond that, I think it kind of came off well, and it was a competitive match, more than I thought it would be. And they didn't go the Fiend route of having him just like sit there and take no offense, which was just not good when they did that back in 2019, 2020. So. Your thoughts on the match and how the Wyatt Six stuff has been going so far?
Yeah, I thought it was a decent match. The wig with the hair kind of was a little goofy, but we'll let that slide. I'm glad that he sells and he's not like the Fiend and indestructible, so that's also a good sign. Thought it was, like you said, a good, not the greatest match, but when the crowd was into it, and like you said, the Wyatt Six come out to fend off the Creeds, and Ivy was good, and I mean, he won here, and we'll move on. I mean, I think this would be the end of them fighting, but who knows?
Yeah, I think it should be. I am curious where they go from here, because like I said, they've been feuding with this faction now for 3 months, 3.5 months. It's probably time to move on to something else for the Wyatt Six, but I'm curious what they do. I don't think they go challenge for tag team gold or any shit like that, so I am curious what kind of direction they go in ultimately. What false prophets they call, that they say they're going to target next. So there's any number of people on Raw. They have a pretty deep roster, I think, on Monday nights. Number of other factions and whatnot. So we'll see. But I think what they've done so far has been good. They capped off the show on a good note on Monday night with the Uncle Howdy Chad Gable match. And I think, people are digging it too. People aren't just sitting on their hands. So that's obviously a good sign. So as we kind of transition into the weekend events, I'll ask you about No Mercy first. It's coming up on Sunday. That's NXT's live show. They are moving to the CW on October 1st. So I think the show on Sunday looks like a good show, but I think they will save some of the bigger stuff for that first show on the CW, because it's taking place in Chicago at the Allstate Arena, I believe. Punk will be on that show. They're going to want to stack up that show to make it feel as important as possible. So with that being said, I feel like this could be a good show, and it will be a good show, I think. But they're really going to hold out that more important stuff for that first CW show in a couple of weeks, so we'll see. But as far as this show goes, they do have a litany of title matches, except for one. All of these matches are championship matches except for one. Wesley and Zachary Wentz, the Rascals, imploded a couple of weeks ago. And on Tuesday, they had this awesome promo segment building up the match, where both guys really excelled on the mic, setting the stage for this what should be a really, really good encounter between the two. Who you got going over in this one? The current Rascal or the former Rascal? Wesley or Zachary Wentz?
Well, I think Wesley, I mean, he's the hot hand right now. He's the guy they're pushing as a heel. I think it makes sense to put him over here.
I agree. Actually, on that same note, we have a TNA talent in the main event, which we'll get to in a couple minutes. But how do you think the TNA working relationship has been working out so far? It's just as far as, they've been, I think it's worked differently and in my opinion better. I explained this on Wednesday's hashtag, but I feel like they've done a lot more of the back and forth with TNA and NXT compared to what AEW was doing with TNA, Impact, whatever, a couple of years back. There's much more TNA presence on NXT and vice versa. We had Rosemary, actually, former Knockouts champion, multi-time women's tag team champion, pop up on Tuesday, which was really fucking cool. Your thoughts on how it's been working out so far, and if it could get to a point where we could see maybe a main roster talent pop up in NXT. We have yet to see AJ Styles return to WWE TV since losing to Cody Rhodes back at Clash of the Castle in June. I feel like there's a chance that we could see something like that happen at some point. Maybe he gets inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame at Bound for Glory. But I think so far it's been fun. I don't know what your thoughts are, though.
Yeah, I think they've done a good job. I mean, I haven't seen too much on the TNA side, but I mean, I know that they've had some good crossovers on NXT, and it sounds like they've kind of given them a little bit as well. So, I mean, I think it's a give and give. If you're both given, then it should work out pretty seamlessly.
Yeah, and I like the AEW working relationship too. I like the AEW working relationship too, and that was a thing a couple of years ago. But like, it was really just Omega beating the TNA talent coming in, and it was cool. But like, there wasn't really any TNA people on the AEW side. Just a few AEW stars are popping up on Impact every couple of weeks. With NXT and TNA, I know you mentioned you didn't see the TNA stuff, but there are some lower level talent appearing on TNA, which is fine. They're like developmental talents: Riley Osborne, Izzy Dame, Dante Chen, among other people, which is cool. Joe Coffey, or was it? No, it was Wolfgang, actually popped up in TNA a couple of weeks ago to face Joe Hendry. So I think they've done a really good job of that, and hopefully it continues, and they continue having TNA talent and NXT talent crossover. It's been cool to see. So we had the NXT Tag Team titles up for grabs here. Chase University winning the belts a couple of weeks back, beating Nathan Frazier and Axiom. Nathan Frazier and Axiom getting their rematch on this upcoming show this weekend. The first two matches were excellent. I'm sure this match will be no different. I'm kind of surprised Frazier and Axiom haven't imploded yet. All these other teams are imploding around them. But they are an excellent team, though. Who you got going over here? Chase U retaining the titles. They just won, which is probably the obvious pick. Or Frazier and Axiom.
You kind of teased it there. I feel like Axiom and Nathan Frazier are about to implode. I would keep the belts on Chase U. They just won them.
Yeah, no, I'm not a Chase U guy, but they just won the belts, so them retaining here makes the most sense. Kalani Jordan defending the NXT Women's North American Championship against, I'm sure, your favorite, Wendy Chu. Jordan's been champion now for about almost 3 months, so I mean, her losing it to Sol Ruka wasn't going to happen back at Heatwave, but come No Mercy on Sunday, she will have already been champion for about 3 months, so you know what, maybe she could lose it here. I don't think she will. I don't think she should. Wendy Chu does not need to be champion, rather, and I don't think that happens here. So who you got, Wendy Chu or Kalani Jordan?
Kalani Jordan. I can't stand the Wendy Chu, whatever the fuck you're calling this. It's like an Abaddon trash gimmick.
Yeah, I'm not a Wendy Chu guy either, but I will say at the very least, it is better than the shit that she was doing previously. It's a low bar, but it's better than the pillow shit. I mean, she still has a pillow, I guess, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying, at least it's an improvement over what it was. I know it's a low bar to begin with, but it is worth pointing out. As long as she doesn't become champion, that's really all that I give a shit about. NXT North American Championship, Oba Femi having a kind of random title defense here against Tony D'Angelo. Thoughts on who might go over here? Oba Femi's been champion since January. He's been champion for quite a while. Tony D'Angelo is, I was going to say he's never held singles gold in NXT, but that's actually not true. Because he literally
He's a Heritage Cup winner.
He won the Heritage Cup championship. As if that means anything, but he still was a Heritage Cup champion. So he did win that. But beyond that, he is also a former tag team champion. But I don't know what the fuck's going on with him. Like, he's just bouncing around from feud to feud. He was the NXT championship #1 contender, challenger earlier this year against Ilya Dragunov at Stand and Deliver. He's challenging for the North American title here. He was the Heritage Cup champion for a little while. He was in a tag team for a little while. So he's literally been all over the card in the past year. I don't think he wins here. I think he should be main roster bound after 3 years, but I just don't know if you call up Rizzo, Luca, Crucifino, and Lorenzo with him. So your thoughts in the match, who might go over, and what do you think's going on right now, Tony D'Angelo? What's his ceiling in NXT?
I think he's hit his ceiling in NXT. I don't think he's going to win this match. I think if you call him up, you kind of have to call him with the whole group, so maybe that's why he's still kind of down there. But I think Femi wins here. Yeah,
I think Femi retains. You would think if they call up D'Angelo, they're going to call up the entire family, even if it was like, we met Adriana, Rizzo, when she got signed a couple of years ago. She's improved. I just don't know if I want to see her in the main roster. I feel like even someone like a Carmella, when they didn't call up her, but they did call up Enzo and Cass because they didn't feel Carmella was ready. Even she might have been better off than Rizzo is right now. And they didn't call her up with them at that point. So, I don't know. I'm skeptical.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
We'll see. I don't know. They could call him up in time for the fall. I don't know where they would go or if they would have direction from the get-go, but it might be an improvement over staying in NXT and continuing to lose because, again, he was the Heritage Cup champion for a while, but he also failed to win the NXT championship. He's failed to win the North American championship in the past. Their reign as NXT tag team champions was kind of underwhelming. It was short-lived, so I don't know. I guess we'll find out after Sunday what might be next for Tony D'Angelo. NXT Women's Championship on the line. Roxanne Perez versus Jada Parker. Battle of two heels, so kind of a weird matchup to do. But Roxanne Perez has been a great champion. She had a good match with Lola Vice back at Heatwave. She had a very good match on TV a couple of weeks ago with Thea Hale. And I think the match here with Jada Parker should also be Jada Parker's best match yet. Roxanne Perez, it kind of feels like she's not a transitional champion, but it does feel like she's keeping this belt warm for when either Julia comes in and takes it from her or Stephanie Vacquier, probably on the sooner side. So I think it's safe to say that Roxanne Perez is going to beat Jada Parker here to retain the title, right?
Yeah, I think Roxanne wins here. Like I said, kind of random with the two heels, but I think Roxanne wins here.
Now, they did tease on Tuesday when Jada Parker was having her sit-down interview and Roxanne Perez crashed it. Jada Parker attacked her. She looked off-screen to Jada Parker. Roxanne Perez did too. She was like, "Oh, what are you doing here? If you want some, come get some." I don't know if she said that. That's John Cena's catchphrase from like 20 years ago. But she said something along those lines. And people were wondering, like, who is she referring to? It could have been Rosemary because she ended up popping up later on in the show. I don't think it was. I think they were trying to plant the seeds, or it was designed to tease that either Julia was there or that Stephanie Vacquier was there. Do you think we'll see either one of these women finally debut in NXT TV, aside from Stand and Deliver, where Julia popped up in the crowd with William Regal over WrestleMania weekend? Could Sunday be where we finally see either one of those women finally debut and maybe target Roxanne Perez?
Yeah, I think last I knew Julia was hurt, so maybe more on the Stephanie Vacquier side. But I think they need another like big women to finally take the belt off Roxanne.
If she's not hurt, if Julia's not hurt, and she can't actually go, do you think it would make sense if they were to have Julia not even wait until Halloween Havoc at the end of October, but rather face and probably beat Roxanne for the championship on that first CW show in Chicago on October 1st? Because I feel like that'd be a nice way to load up that show.
Works for me.
I think that'd be a great way to do it. We get to the NXT Championship, which will probably be defended on that show as well, which is why I don't see a title change here. Also because he's facing a TNA talent, but still. TNA's Joe Hendry, who's been super popular this year, challenging for the NXT Championship against All Ego Ethan Page, who's come into the role of champion and an NXT superstar quite well since he debuted back in June. He's already proven to be like a better fit for NXT than he ever was in AEW or Ring of Honor. But this should be a good matchup. Trick Williams will be serving as the special guest referee, as we found out on Tuesday. So, does Ethan Page walk away with a win, or does Joe Hendry somehow find a way to become the new TNA World Champion? Or NXT Champion, on Sunday.
I think Page retains. Like you said, he's with Hendry being a TNA talent, I just don't see him winning the NXT Championship. I think Page just won the belt. It'd be kind of weird to take it right off him. I think he's kind of flourishing right now, like you said, in NXT, doing a lot better than he was in AEW. So I'd keep the belt on him.
As far as how they can work around losing or having Joe Hendry lose here, especially with Trick as the special guest ref, Pete Dunne still has unresolved issues with Trick. They're going to have a rematch on next week's show. So, Pete Dunne could get involved here. I think, honestly, more likely as part of this TNA working relationship, they could have Josh Alexander, who is a former TNA World Champion, one of their top talents over there. Former tag team partner of Ethan Page. They broke up when Ethan left for AEW a few years ago. He's actually not feuding with Joe Hendry, but he did cost them the TNA Championship back at Slammiversary about a month ago. So there's a decent chance that he could pop up not only to cost Joe Hendry the win, but to reunite the North, if only briefly, for a tag team match on NXT or whatever in the next couple of weeks. I feel like that'd be fucking cool. So either way, though, I do think they're going to set up Trick and Ethan Page in a rematch for the championship, probably in that first CW show. Is that safe to say, you think?
Yeah.
I could see Trick getting the belt back on that show. But with all of that being said, we're not predicting any title changes for this show on Sunday, which is fine. I think they had 2 title changes, I think. At Heatwave, I know the NXT Championship changed hands. The women's didn't. The tag team titles didn't. So maybe that was it. Maybe there was only 1 title change. But that ended up being a very good show. So I'm hoping No Mercy is also a good show on Sunday before we get to Halloween Havoc at the end of the month in October. And also the CW debut on October 1st, which I think they're going to load up, like I said, with some pretty big matches to make it feel like a big deal. Bash in Berlin is coming up the day before No Mercy on Saturday, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So this will be an earlier show, even earlier than Clash and Money in the Bank. This is a 1 p.m. show, not even 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. But I like the earlier shows. They get them done earlier, and will probably be around 4 hours. This is another one of those shorter cards. Only 5 matches announced. They could announce another match on Friday, which I think is going to be a tape SmackDown in Berlin, not airing live here in the States. I don't think they will, though. I think they're going to keep it to 5 matches. They might announce a pre-show match, but that's kind of rare. We've only had 1 pre-show match in the last couple of months, and that was back at Clash, I think, or King and Queen of the Ring, I think. But this one has no pre-show match, so it's only 5 matches. Now, before we get into the actual card, Mr. Marceau, I do want to ask you, because there was a lot of discourse about this. Yesterday I gave my 2 cents. The shorter cards, are you in favor of it, or are you not in favor of it? Because a lot of people are complaining that, it's not enough wrestling, and WWE is a lot of commercials, which I say complaining, but that's a pretty valid criticism. For me, I enjoyed the whole less is more approach. The constant commercials and the Peacock ad breaks are annoying, but that's just the nature of their deal with Peacock, I think. On pay-per-view, you shouldn't have to deal with that.
Pay some real money.
Yeah, I mean, it's Peacock's cheap. I'd rather deal with that than, pay $50-$60. All In will probably end up being a better show than Bash in Berlin. Not when you had to pay $50-$60 for. But, if it means having to pay less and just having to deal with a couple commercials, it does hurt the flow of the show, but it doesn't really bother me all that much. I think the less is more approach and giving these matches more time makes more sense than doing 10 matches and they only go 10 minutes each or 5 minutes or whatever. So I'm totally fine with only 5 matches, but what's your take on the shorter cards that we've seen during the Triple H era?
I'm fine with the shorter card. Just give me more matches that matter. I think that's kind of my biggest takeaway from these international shows. I feel like they're all like chalk. You know who's going to win. They're pretty predictable. I know they kind of save some more stuff for Raw and SmackDown, but like all these people paying a decent amount of money for. Usually, we never get any real big surprise on these shows. I think that would probably be my biggest takeaway is like have more matches that mean more on these shows.
You think having a match like, and the match will be fine, I'm sure, and we'll talk about the match, but Alba Fire and Nyla Dawn versus Bianca and Jade, like, that's an example of what you're talking about? That's not really a match that you want to see on pay-per-view?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I could agree with that. We're not having there's not going to be a women's championship defense on this show. I know Nia Jax is defending the WWE Women's Championship against, I must say Liv Morgan against Michin. Liv Morgan's on the pay-per-view. Against Michin in a Berlin street fight, I believe, on SmackDown the night before. And then Liv Morgan obviously is in the mixed tag team match that we're getting. I don't know if we've talked about this, but do you think part of the problem with what you're talking about with these pay-per-views is that they're predictable, but is that because Triple H's booking has been better than Vince's, but part of it's almost formulaic where they save the bigger payoffs for the big 4 pay-per-views? Like SummerSlam is extremely eventful because they saved a lot of shit for that show. But I feel like some of these smaller shows would benefit, and I love the international crowds, but I feel like some of these smaller shows would benefit from having more meaningful moments to make people want to actually tune in and feel like anything can happen, like you said.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I mean. I mean, like you said, I just feel like more bigger things need to happen. Like, so I think if there's all pretty predictable things happen, and then we just kind of like move on. They're good shows, but it's like you said, like nothing really crazy has happened at any of these international shows.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, I loved Backlash, but that was like the best B show they've done in a while. But all the other ones have been good. I've enjoyed all the other ones, but they are pretty predictable, which is what we're going to go over now with these predictions. It should be pretty simple because a lot of these matches are pretty I mean, some of them could go either way, actually, but we'll get into that. So we'll start with the aforementioned Unholy Union versus Bianca and Jade for the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. Fire and Dawn won the belts back at Clash in that triple threat tag team match, not pinning Bianca and Jade. They pinned Shayna or Zoe. They had a rematch on SmackDown right before SummerSlam that ended in a DQ after Blair Davenport got involved. I just can't see Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, who have finally been getting TV time, because for the first month or two of their run, they got fucking no TV time. And all of a sudden, they have TV time, and now they're probably going to lose the belts, which is fine by me. I just can't see Fire or Dawn pinning Bianca or Jade. I mean, they're going to have to lose the belts at some point, do Bianca and Jade, but unless they do another fuck finish or with like a DQ or a count out, I just can't see Bianca or Jade getting pinned by either one of these two women. So I think Bianca and Jade are getting the belts back. What do you think?
I think you keep the belts on Dawn and Fire.
Is that to progress the story between Bianca and Jade? Because I would agree with that if so.
Yeah, I think you could like do something that maybe there's just a miscue and Bianca or like Jade accidentally hits Bianca and then that's how they win. I just, like you said, they just started getting TV time, so then you got to take the belts off them. And
yes.
I just feel like Bianca and Jade don't need them again.
No, they don't.
They don't need the belt again.
No, they definitely don't. I think they're just going to. I'm agreeing with you, but I do think they're going to give the belts back to Bianca and Jade to drag it out more, because I don't know if they want to save the match for Mania, and I hate even saying that out loud because that's 7 months away. They can't wait that long. Yeah. I don't know. So I could see them getting the belts back, and then they could lose them to like Nia and Tiffany, who are kind of a team now. I could see someone like a Nia pinning a Jade or a Bianca. I could totally see that. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult though, because I would rather see them moving to Bianca and Jade on the sooner side, but I feel like they're going to go the long-term storytelling route and wait until like 2026 at this point to do the match.
Yeah, who knows?
I just feel like that's way too long. I'm kind of ready for them to move on from it, but I got new tag team champions here. You think, I know you want them to retain. Do you think they will retain though, Fire and Dawn?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Maybe these matches won't be as predictable as I thought. The Terror Twins, Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley, taking on the Judgment Day's Dirty Dominic Mysterio and the Women's World Champion, Liv Morgan. Nice build for the match. The baby faces have been extremely over so far, which has been nice to see. I think the Terror Twins are losing here to set up the Judgment Day as the winners and to further build towards the heels, maybe getting their comeuppance at Bad Blood, but not here. So do you think Damian and Liv go, or Damian and Rhea go over, or the Judgment Day?
I think the Judgment Day go over.
Do you think they are going to set up the other rematches for Bad Blood, and that's why they might be, keeping them on the hotter side until then?
Yes.
Yeah, I would think so too. I have the Terror Twins losing here, Judgment Day as well. I would agree with that. Punk and McIntyre, strap match. McIntyre won the first one. Who wins the rematch here?
Punk wins.
Okay, to set up a third match in the next pay-per-view?
Yep.
Probably inside Hell in a Cell. I'm going to go with Drew McIntyre. I think Drew's going to steal this one.
Wow.
I think Punk winning makes more sense if you want to go 50-50. But I think Punk's ultimately winning the third match. So I feel like they might have Drew beat him again and then to keep Punk chasing him. And Punk needs to win. He's lost. He's only had a couple matches, but he has yet to win since coming back to the company on television. He needs to win, but I think McIntyre wins here again. I don't know how you would do that without making Punk look like a loser, but that's what I think is going to happen. Do you think there's further emphasis in this match on the bracelet? How do you think that's going to play out?
Yeah, I think probably. I mean, like I said, I think Punk's going to win just to set up the last match, but I mean, I hope not. I mean, the last match was more the storytelling one, so I think this one will be more of a full-out fight.
Yeah, I think so as well, and I hope so, because their first match was good, but the emphasis was kind of more on the storytelling. I hope they kind of move away from the bracelet stuff soon and start focusing on the next chapter, which is like the all-out intensity between the two. Gunther Randy Orton World Heavyweight Championship. I mean, I'm reading here in Wikipedia, if Orton wins, he goes to Raw as the champion, which makes sense. But it's also saying that Gunther would go to SmackDown. I don't remember them ever saying that. Maybe that's the case, maybe it's not. I don't know. But that's what it's saying here in Wikipedia. And we all know how trustworthy Wikipedia can be, so I don't know. But I think the match will be good. This is the rematch from King and Queen of the Ring when Gunther won via, not nefarious means, but Orton had his shoulder up and they're going back to the match, which is cool. I don't think there's any doubt Gunther wins here, but people have been trying to tell me maybe Orton gets another win, maybe he can steal the victory and they swap brands. I don't really see what that accomplishes. I think Gunther walks away still World Heavyweight Champion. What about you?
Yeah, it's Gunther all day. This is just a further on feud, like you said, just a kind of transition, another Gunther win. Randy's not going to Raw. They're not swapping brands. It doesn't make any sense. He just won the belt. He hasn't lost a match in over a year or since WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So it's Gunther all day.
Yeah, I just feel like it would be ass backwards to plant the seed so aggressively for Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes at some point, only to not do that match. I mean, that would be pretty... I mean, I feel like that's the ultimate endgame, is Cody and Orton at some point in the next couple of months or around WrestleMania time, not to transfer the two and then to get Gunther... I mean, I guess Gunther and Cody's an option, but I feel like Orton and Cody's the match that everyone wants to see on the Sooner side.
Yeah, exactly. I think after Owens, it's going to be Cody and Randy.
Yeah, I think so as well. Or Orton gets involved, and somehow it's a three-way feud or whatever. But speaking of which, Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens, I think, will be the main event for the Undisputed WWE Championship. Battle of babyfaces, but they're heavily teasing that Owens could turn. I don't think he does. I think it's a red herring. I think they want you to think he's going to turn, but it ends up being, Randy Orton instead. How do you think this is going to play out? What are your expectations for this matchup, and who do you see going over?
It'll be a good match with Rhodes all day. I mean, like you said, just like Gunther, I just don't think there's any chance Owens beats him. I don't think he should beat him. I don't think I don't think he returns heel to beat him. I think it's Cody retains, and then, like you said, I think him and Orton probably the next program going on.
You don't think there's any chance that Owens not only wins the championship, but turns heel in the process to take the title from Cody as like a shock win? I don't think it's going to happen, but I wouldn't mind if it did.
I just feel like for Cody now, I mean, like you said, what would you just get the belt right back? I don't know. I
Probably.
don't love the idea. I think, I would just keep the belt on Cody.
If they were to do that, I feel like they're probably going to do that. If with anyone, probably with Randy and not with Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
I
think the same.
Yeah, I think Orton might be the one to turn heel and get the belt, if only briefly, and then lose it right back to Cody. Last thing on Owens real quick. It came out this week, actually from my buddy Rick Ucchino. He interviewed Kevin Owens a couple days ago, and he found out that Owens' deal is expiring soon. I don't think that has any bearing on this match at all. We kind of figured that because he signed a 3-year deal, I think 3 years ago, but he has yet to re-sign, he said. So, this is probably a non-story because I don't think Owens is going anywhere. Do you think there's any chance he leaves to AEW? Because there was 3 years ago, but again, that was when Vince was in charge, and he re-signed then. If he doesn't re-sign now, I would be shocked. What is he going to go join the Elite angle and take Okada's spot or some shit? Like, if there was any chance that he would leave, it probably would have been then when AEW was super hot. I don't think it happens now.
No, I think he's been booked well enough under Triple H that I doubt he would leave.
Yeah, and I hope he gets another world title run at some point. I think that he belongs at that level, and he's been pushed well in the last 3 years. I don't think it happens on this show. I also just don't see him leaving for AEW. I feel like that's probably not going to happen, but you never know. Stranger things have happened, and people have jumped ship, and a lot of contracts have come due in the last year, and a lot of people have moved, so who knows? That's the exciting state of the wrestling landscape right now. But we'll say the Bash in Berlin review for next week. We'll also, chat some thoughts on No Mercy and everything else going down in the world of wrestling as we head into the month of September. Summer already over, which is crazy to think about, but more chatter on the show here next week. So new episodes every single Thursday, WrestleRant.com, WrestleRantRadio.com, all the usual podcast platforms. Rate the show, review the show, subscribe to the show. Never miss new episodes every single Thursday. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, Mr. Marceau. I'll catch you next week.
See you later, man.
Adios, folks.
Join Graham GSM Matthews and RJ Marceau every Thursday as they run down their weekly wrestling rants, offer expert analysis, host exclusive interviews, and more. Subscribe today on all your favorite podcast platforms and never miss an episode of WrestleRant Radio.